If you know your multiplication tables, math will be easy. I've been telling you that all year, and that's definitely the case with 6-5 when we're going to be multiplying a decimal by a whole number. So let's take a look at an example of 9 8/10 times 2. So step 1 when multiplying a decimal is to imagine that there is no decimal in the problem, and we're just going to multiply like normal. So in 9 8/10 times 2, I'm just going to pretend it says 98 instead. So 98 times 2, I'm going to start with the ones place. 2 times 8, which is 16, carry the 1. 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1 more is 19. And I'm done with the multiplication problem. That was pretty easy. Now we're going to move into step 2 for doing decimals. And step 2 says I need to count up all the numbers behind the decimal that are in the original problem. So in my original problem I had 9 8/10 and a 2. So 9 8/10, there's one number behind the decimal, and that's the 8. And then 2 doesn't even have a decimal, so there's nothing behind it. So in this whole problem, we only have one number behind the decimal. So here's my problem again, with one number behind the decimal. And step 3 says that in the answer, we're going to put the same amount of numbers behind the decimal that we counted up in the original problem that we did in step 2. So there was one number behind the decimal in the problem, which means in our answer we're going to have one number behind the decimal. So instead of 196 as my answer, that 6 is going to go behind the decimal, and I'm going to have 19 6/10. Let's check out another example. 17/100 times 26. Now step 1 says imagine there is no decimal. So if there's no decimal, this says 017, which we know just means 17. We don't even have to worry about the 0 in the front. So let's multiply like normal. I'm going to start with 6 times 7, which is 42. Carry my 4. And 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 more is 10. And then I'm going to do my tic-tac-toe. I used my 6, tick, I used my 4, tack, and I need to put my 0 in for the ones place, toe, tic-tac-toe. Now multiply. 2 times 7 is 14, carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 more is 3. And then I'm going to add those two numbers up, those partial products. 2 plus nothing is 2, 0 plus 4 is 4, and 1 plus 3 is 4. Now step 2 says I have to go back to the original problem and count all the numbers behind the decimal. And 26 doesn't have a decimal, so there's nothing behind it. But 17/100 has two numbers behind the decimal, the 1 and the 7, two numbers. So in my answer, I'm going to have two numbers behind the decimal. 1, 2, and then I put my decimal down. So instead of 442, it's actually 4 42/100. Problem number 1 in your practice book. 5 4/10 times 3. Remember, imagine the decimal is not there at all. We're just going to multiply. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 2, and 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 more is 16. Now, how many numbers behind the decimal in the original problem? Only one. Only that 4 is behind the decimal, which means only one number behind the decimal in my answer. So 16 2/10 is my final answer. Number 2. 3 8/10 times 4. So let's just multiply like normal. 4 times 8 is 32, carry the 3. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 more is 15. How many numbers behind the decimal in the original problem? Only the 8, so only one number behind the decimal, which means my answer only has one number behind the decimal. 15 2/10 is my answer.